At the mouth of the Catatumbo River, where it spills into Lake Maracaibo in western Venezuela, the night sky can erupt again and again with lightning. Not once. Not as a rare event. Sometimes for hours. Sometimes on dozens and dozens of nights in the same season. People have described the region as a place where darkness never fully arrives, because the horizon keeps flashing like a distant signal fire. That is the first clue in this story. The mystery is not whether lightning happens here. It is why this one basin behaves like a machine built to keep the storm alive. And once you look at the geography, the answer becomes less magical and more unnerving. Lake Maracaibo is not an ordinary lake. It is a vast basin wrapped by mountains, warmed by tropical air, and fed by rivers, wetlands, and coastline that all feed moisture into the same low-lying bowl. That matters, because thunderstorms are not random sparks. They are systems. Air rises. Air cools. Water condenses. Clouds build. Electricity separates. And when the conditions line up, the sky discharges. In the Catatumbo region, those conditions line up with almost suspicious consistency. The basin traps heat. The surrounding high ground shapes the winds. The lake surface keeps feeding moisture into the air. So the real question becomes simple and brutal. What is it about this place that keeps rebuilding the storm night after night? Long before weather satellites, people along the lake had a different explanation for what they saw. Sailors reportedly used the lightning as a landmark. From far away, the flashes could be visible across the water, turning the sky itself into a kind of moving beacon. That is why the phenomenon became known in folklore and travel accounts as the Lighthouse of Maracaibo. The name feels poetic, but it also reveals something important. Human beings do this whenever a natural pattern repeats with force. We give it a name. We turn it into a place. We treat it like a character. And in Catatumbo, the character is not a ghost or a myth. It is weather with enough repetition to become legend. The deeper clue is not the lightning itself. It is the bowl. Lake Maracaibo sits inside a landscape that helps hold heat, steer air, and keep moisture from escaping too easily. Rivers feed the basin. Warm water keeps evaporating into the evening sky. Surrounding high ground changes how wind moves after sunset. So instead of a random storm drifting across an empty plain, you get a place that keeps rebuilding the same ingredients in the same corridor. That is why local weather here feels less like a passing event and more like a repeated setup. The terrain is not just a backdrop. It is part of the mechanism. And because the strongest flashes often build after sunset, when the air cools and the basin starts breathing differently, the spectacle arrives exactly when the world is supposed to go quiet. That timing is a big part of the fear. The storm does not interrupt the day. It owns the night. Meteorologists usually start with collision. Warm, moisture-rich air rises from the lake and the surrounding lowlands. At the same time, cooler air can spill down from the nearby mountains after sunset. When those air masses meet, they create lift. Lift becomes cloud towers. Cloud towers become thunderstorms. And thunderstorms become lightning. The key is that this is not just one collision. It is a recurring setup, shaped by the valley walls, the basin floor, the heat stored in the water, and the winds that organize after dark. In other words, Catatumbo is not a mystery, because lightning exists here. It is a mystery because the local geography keeps pressing the same weather button over and over again. The atmosphere is not acting randomly. It is being forced into a pattern. This is the part that makes the story feel almost artificial. Daytime heats the land and water. Humidity builds. Evening winds arrive. Storm cells form. Lightning flashes. Then the cycle resets. That repetition is why Catatumbo has fascinated scientists for generations. The system does not need to be supernatural to feel relentless. It just needs to be efficient. And in this basin, the ingredients are constantly replenished. Heat from below, moisture from the lake, motion from the mountains, and instability from the changing atmosphere above. That is why the lightning does not feel like a one-off headline. It feels like a habit. Each night, the air learns the same pattern again. Each night, the sky remembers the basin. And each night, the storm corridor comes back to life. If you were designing a natural lightning factory, this is what it might look like. Not a single perfect storm. A corridor that keeps rebuilding itself. The legend gets stronger when you look at the satellite era. Researchers using space-based lightning detection and storm climatology have repeatedly identified the Lake Maracaibo Basin as one of the most active lightning regions on Earth. That is the evidence card that matters. Not a story told by a traveler. Not a local exaggeration. A pattern visible from orbit. When a hotspot like this appears on scientific maps year after year, the mystery shifts. We stop asking whether the stories are real. We start asking what combination of terrain, moisture, and wind is powerful enough to make them inevitable. Catatumbo is not just a dramatic place. It is a reproducible one. There is still a reason this phenomenon sounds unreal. Lightning changes the scale of everything. It turns clouds into walls. It turns water into a mirror. It turns distance into a lie. From a shoreline, a storm on the horizon can feel close enough to touch. From a boat, the flashes can seem to arrive from every direction at once. And when a pattern repeats night after night, the brain stops treating it like weather and starts treating it like a presence. That is the emotional power of Catatumbo. The rational explanation does not shrink the mystery. It sharpens it. Because if the sky can become this consistent without any magic at all, then nature itself is capable of something that looks almost intentional. The broad explanation is strong, but the details still matter. Scientists continue to study how seasonal shifts, regional winds, lake temperatures, and larger climate patterns change the intensity and timing of the storms. The system is real. The mechanism is real. But the exact strength of the engine is never perfectly constant. Some seasons are stronger than others. Some nights stay active longer. Some years the pattern tightens, and some years it loosens. That is why Catatumbo remains interesting even after you understand the basic science. It is not a frozen answer. It is a living weather laboratory. So what is the truth behind Catatumbo lightning? The safest answer is that it is a natural lightning hotspot created by geography, moisture, and atmospheric circulation. But that answer is not boring. It is scarier. Because it means the landscape itself can organize the sky into a recurring spectacle, so large and so precise that generations treated it like a beacon. No hidden machine. No lost civilization. No supernatural switch. Just terrain, heat, water, and wind working together with enough force to make the night feel alive. That is the kind of mystery Atlas loves most. Not the one that disappears when explained. The one that becomes more impressive when you finally understand it. If Catatumbo made you see weather differently, stay with the Mystery Atlas TV. The next investigation follows another place where geography, legend, and evidence collide. Subscribe for the full series, and tell me in the comments whether you think Catatumbo is best described as a miracle, a machine, or a little of both.